It's time for love. It's time for your love coach. Let's find out if you're ready for love. Here's your marvelous host, Nikki Lee.
Hello, and welcome to Ready for Love Radio. This is your host and love coach, Nikki Lee. Today, we are going to talk about conscious relationships. And you're thinking, well, I'm always conscious if I'm in a relationship. But nope. We're gonna go a little deeper than that. And to talk about that, I've got a conscious relationship coach with me here today, and she's going to talk to us, and she's going to help us understand what that means and how it works. So, Jessica Hendricks, how are you today?
I'm great, Nikki. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad you could be with me today, and I think we're going to help the listeners get an idea of how to have a deeper, better relationship. What do you think?
I think that is so needed right now, especially right now on the planet. So I'm happy to share.
You got into coaching, I'm thinking, from reading through your bio, because of things that happened in your life. Is that right?
Absolutely true. Yes. I feel like my life was my training program.
I know. I love how you say that your life was your case study. You know?
Yes, it absolutely was. That is for sure.
You know, I read that and I'm like, that's a good way to put it. I usually, explain it with more words than that, but that's concise, and I like it. I like that. I might have to use that one day. But,
Yeah, I would keep you all day if I explained all of the things to you that makes that true. So, but yes, absolutely. My life was my case study, my training, all of it.
I think it gives us credibility, and I use a lot of my personal experiences on here, and I do that because I think it helps the listeners, and I think it helps our clients to connect with us better. It helps what we're saying resonate with them better. And I know when I'm talking to somebody or I'm trying to get help from somebody, I like to work with somebody who I really feel understands what I'm going through. You know, it just, when you really need help, it's nice to know the person gets it, that they understand where you're at. And especially when you need to make changes or you need to do something big, it's nice to know the person understands what you're going through, what you need. And especially when you're struggling, when you're struggling, yes. I hate when you're struggling with something and the person goes, oh, I understand. And you're like, no, you don't. You haven't got a clue.
You actually don't.
Or when you're really sick and you're just feeling horrible and you're trying to deal with something and the person goes, oh, I know how you feel. And you're sitting there going, no, you don't. You haven't got any idea, It doesn't help. It just doesn't, No,
it doesn't.
But it does not help, So it just, I was talking about this, probably a month or so ago, and we were talking about how, and he was giving the example of somebody who they were going through something. I think it was open heart surgery, and the person was feeling really bad. And I know first time I went through open heart surgery, it made all the difference to just see that the person had the same scar I did. I knew they'd been there. I knew that they did understand. They did know how massive it was to go through it and just how overwhelming it was to try to go through the recuperation process, And so many things in life are like that. It just, when the person, and sometimes they just need to say one or two things to help you know they do get it. And it's such a feeling of relief that the person does understand. You know? So I think it's so wonderful that most every coach I know has been through what they're helping people with. So it just makes a difference. So do you want to give the listeners a little bit, because it would take a while to go through everything, but you want to give them just a little snapshot of some of what brought you to coaching?
Yes, I would love to. So in a nutshell, for most of my adult life, I really struggled in my relationships of all kinds, but mostly romantic, because I think the romantic relationships are where that person is usually the closest person to us, and they really mirror back to us whatever's going on within ourselves. And so in that way, they can be, some of the most challenging relationships that we experience. And I had, years where I just dated people that were very unavailable. And then, when I did have a relationship, it was very toxic. And just the dynamics that I kept creating unknowingly in my life were so devastating, because all I really wanted was to have a partner and someone to share life with. And I couldn't understand, why do I keep attracting people that don't want what I want, or why am I attracted to the people that are unavailable, or why am I, allowing myself to be in a relationship that's really unhealthy and really toxic. So it was really, really challenging. And, my friends were in relationships, getting married, having kids, and I was kind of thinking, like, what's wrong with me? Why not me?
Right.
So that's kind of a snapshot into some of the challenges that I had.
Well, and I think a lot of people understand that, because it seems like most of us at one time or another have gone through the very same thing.
Yeah.
It can take a lot to get out of that and past that. It's a little bit frustrating when you're doing that and just wondering, what is the problem and what do I do about it? But
exactly.
You know what? I think we can probably help them with that. What do you think?
I think we absolutely can help them with that.
This is why I love coaching, and this is one of the reasons I have a radio show. All right. So tell me, first of all, what's your favorite thing about coaching?
My favorite thing about coaching is actually kind of, you already touched on it, but just giving my clients a safe space to come and feel seen and heard and really loved and supported. Because when I was growing up, I didn't feel really very supported in many different ways. And so to be able to give that to people, to give them something that maybe they've wanted or needed for most of their lives, is such a gift. So that's what I love. And just letting people know that they're not alone, like you said. Like, they're not alone. I've been through it too, and they don't have to walk this path alone through their struggle.
I love that. It's funny. I really didn't think about this as a kid, because, I had all these people that were around me that I knew cared, but I don't know that I really, and I knew they were there for me, but it was very conditional.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely wasn't unconditional. It was, as long as I did certain things that they all expected, they were there. But if I wasn't the person that they all let's say when I got a little older and started thinking for myself, I realized just how conditional it all was. So
right.
Yeah. So
that's great though, because when we have awareness awareness of the patterns that we've developed as kids, in order to survive or get what we needed in our house as children, we carry those beliefs with us into adulthood, and they play out in our relationships. So having that awareness of, actually it was kind of conditional in the home I grew up in, and I actually would rather change that now. I don't want to keep playing that out as an adult. So I think that awareness is so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I said, it's amazing the things that it's interesting because one of my best friends now, we grew up in the same religion and the same group of friends, and we have the most enlightening conversations now. We never would have as kids because it was our normal, you know. But we discuss things now and it's like, wow, you know.
Yeah.
Very interesting conversations. It's amazing how talking and just kind of discussing certain little things is just, I mean, you have all kinds of light bulb moments. It's very interesting, but
for sure.
Very enlightening to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
How does our subconscious mind work, and how does it impact our relationship with other people, like triggers and reactions and that kind of thing? And how can we learn from that? Because I think there's a whole lot there that we can learn.
Yeah, there's a lot. So that question is amazing, and there's a lot of layers to it. But basically, our subconscious mind really dictates, I think it's over 95% of our day-to-day functioning. So it's really important to know what is going on in our subconscious. Most of the things really serve us in our lives, you know, like how to drive a car, riding a bike, brushing our teeth, you know, a lot of patterns that we have that are healthy, that are just in our subconscious. But there are these beliefs that we have imprinted in based on experiences that we've had in the past, usually as children. And it could be, you know, any time that we experienced a high state of emotion. So when we're little kids and we're growing up, we're like little sponges, and we're trying to make sense of the world. And so any experiences that we have, our brain sort of takes it in and creates, you know, whatever we need to do to survive in our environment. So I'll give you an example. For me, as a kid, I was very emotional, and my parents had no clue what to do with me. They had no idea. And so I developed a belief in my subconscious that I have to be perfect to be lovable. If I could only be perfect, then I will be lovable. And so we imprint certain things like that, and it sounds something like, you know, I'm not enough, I'm alone. We each have our own little set of these beliefs, but they sound similar. And it's our brain trying to keep us safe. And so for me, my brain was like, if you are perfect, you will be lovable. So you need to be perfect as often as you can. And of course, we know perfect doesn't exist.
Right.
But then I carried this with me into my relationships, you know, not only with romantic partners, which is where it showed up the strongest, but in, you know, relationships with bosses and coworkers. And my need to be perfect actually created a lot of discord for me in my life. So once we have awareness of these beliefs, we can start to kind of choose differently. And so first we uncover, well, where did that even come from? So I was lucky enough to do this work with a coach and uncover all of the beliefs that weren't serving me. And one of them was I have to be perfect to be lovable. And then I started to look back at all of my relationships, and I realized, oh my gosh, I was just playing out this belief system. And I would pick the perfect person, the perfect situation to prove myself right, that I have to be perfect. And so that's where our power lies, because when we can recognize the pattern, we can realize, oh my gosh, we've just been playing it out like a movie based on our beliefs. And so we can choose differently, but the awareness is the very first step and one of the most important steps, because if we're not aware, then we can't change anything.
Exactly. Well, and we've got to find those patterns in order to start the process and being aware, like you said, of those patterns.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I did a show where I did like a live session with somebody who was saying that she couldn't find love, and it was driving her crazy and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And she's like, oh, it's not going to work, and all this. And so we did kind of a loose session on, you know, on the show and all this. And she was disagreeing with me with some of the things I said and all this, and within less than a year she found somebody and very, very happy. So it was
love it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it really, at first it's kind of a tough pill to swallow, right? Because it's like, wait, you're saying that I'm causing all this? I'm causing
exactly.
It's like, what? But then it's like, wait. Yeah. At first it's like, no, I'm not. It's them. They're doing it, But, and it's not to say, it's a dynamic, right, between two people. But we have our part. And if we are kind of recreating the same situation over and over again, and we learn, okay, we're the common denominator. As much as it sucks, we're the common denominator, but if we can shift ourselves and do our work on ourselves, we can change our life experiences, and that is really where our power lies. So it's a bit of a rude awakening at first, but then I believe it's empowering.
It is very, well, it's like, okay, you can't change everybody out there, but you can change your choices.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Let's start there.
Yes, and you don't know, because you have to get kind of clear too on what you'd like to create, because if you get distracted, like I call it shiny object syndrome. If you meet somebody and you think, oh, they're really funny and they're really smart and they're really cute, but maybe they have totally different core values than I do, but who cares, because they're really cute or whatever. But once you get clear on what you want to create, you go into it with a totally different kind of energy and just almost like an observer,
right?
When you're meeting with someone, like in the dating process,
right? Hey, you mentioned a phrase that says "does not serve you."
Yeah.
People that may not have heard that before, what does that mean?
So basically, I believe that our beliefs play out in our lives every day, right? So we may as well energize the beliefs that are supportive to us. So certain beliefs, like maybe things always work out. Things are always working out for me. That would be a belief that probably would serve us. But a belief that, I'm alone, or people always leave, or life is hard, is not going to serve us, because we're going to then look out in the world, and this is under our conscious awareness, but we're going to look out in the world and prove ourselves right. So we might see, 10 things that don't align with our belief. Like if we think life is hard and we see all these beautiful things in the world, we won't see that. We will pick the one thing that proves to us that life is hard. Right. And this isn't in our awareness, so we don't do it on purpose, but we create a self-fulfilling prophecy based on our belief system.
True. Well, and I actually asked the wrong person this question this morning. Inside joke. If something serves you, it's of benefit to you. It helps you. It's positive and healthy for you. And if something doesn't serve you, then it makes your life more difficult. It's unhealthy, and it doesn't work for you, and makes your it's a struggle for you. So it would be something that you would want to avoid. And I had another idea with something you just said, and it just gone, just like that.
That happens to me all the time lately.
I know. Well, I looked outside and saw somebody weed eating, and just like that, just gone. I hate when that happens.
Me too. It'll come back.
It will. At the wrong time, but as soon as we're finished, it'll come back. Yeah, it'll come back later. So, and there's this saying, and I'm not going to remember it right, but if you think you're right or you think you're wrong, whichever one you think you're going to be right, because is that right? I mean, that's close.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think it's whether you think, what is that saying? It's like whatever you think is going to be the truth for you. So it's like,
Yeah,
if you think you're wrong, you're wrong. If you think you're right, you're right, you know? I can't think of the exact thing.
It took me the longest time to actually believe that, but the thing is, it's you control so much more than you realize, but what you think and what you say. But I mean, if you keep thinking things are horrible and life is tough and things are bad, you know, that's just like all these people that keep spouting all this hate and all this anger and all this kind of stuff.
Yes. Amen to that. Yes.
Your life is going to be hate and fear and anger, because that's all you're putting out there. Okay, if you're and I'm not getting political, I swear I'm not, and I'm not going to. We don't need any more of that right now. But if your thoughts are constantly on hate and fear and anger, that's what you're going to be surrounded by. You aren't going to see sunshine and roses, because that's not what you're surrounding yourself with. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm getting off of that topic. But I mean,
I'm totally with you.
You know,
I'm totally with you on that topic, because there's so much, and I won't get political either, but there's so much division. There's so much division going on right now. Like, you know, whatever you believe, whatever is going on in the world, you know, the division is like the problem, in my opinion, is one of the biggest problems. Is like, me against you, you're wrong, I'm right, yada, yada, yada. And like energizing the hate, like you're saying, the fear, energizing the fear and the hate, and that just perpetuates it. But I will say, you know, if you have a habit pattern of thinking, which I did for many, many years, I was really depressed, and I could not even see another way of thinking. And so this is why, you know, it's helpful to have support. So whether you decide to work with a coach or a therapist, like, you're not alone. And, you know, I had years where I thought, you know, life is awful, life is hard, life is the worst, you know. And even if someone had said these things to me back then, I would say, what planet are you from? Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. But now I get it. But it does take a minute, because whatever our belief system that we formed, you know, we formed it for a reason, usually as a survival pattern as children. So if we've been playing it out for however many years, however old we are, it takes a minute to rewire and shift. But that's what I'm here for, and I know you help your clients too, Nikki, with things like this. So, yeah.
Well, and we're not saying all it takes is having a happy attitude. That's not what I'm saying.
No. Yes.
Okay, it's not that easy. We both know that, because we've gone through the work to make the change.
Yes.
But one of the important things is surrounding yourself with people that are going to lift you up. Okay? If you're fighting this kind of stuff and you're around other negative people, that's not going to help you. Okay? So if you already have this kind of attitude and you're already feeling bad and feeling down, and you surround yourself, and that's kind of a normal thing. If you're already thinking things are bad, it's amazing how the other people with that attitude kind of gravitate to you.
It's like a magnet.
That's what you're attracting. That's what you're attracting, because you're like, oh, yeah. And they're like, yeah, they think what I do. They do. And, well, look at Facebook. Look at Facebook. Who gravitates to that attitude? It's the very same people. But
exactly.
You want to be around other people who are, and not on Facebook. Don't. That's not what I'm saying. Heaven, no. You know, but surround yourself with people that are gonna encourage you to be more positive, that kind of thing. So that is a really, really good thing.
You know what I remembered, Nikki? I remembered the quote. It's whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
There you go. That's it. We were all the way around it. All the way around it. Yes.
But like exactly what you said, you know, and there's also another one. I think it's you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with.
Yes.
So like you said, you want to surround yourself with people that see the light in you, that are supportive, that allow you to be where you're at. Like some of my closest friends, if I'm having a bad day, they just let me be where I'm at and remind me of the beauty within me, and I didn't have that years ago. I was surrounded, like you said, with people that also felt, really depressed and thought life was awful. And, we numbed ourselves in various ways, like going out and drinking or trying to find men or whatever. And that just made it worse.
Yeah, it does. Now, what about people pleasing?
Ooh, yes. It's a good one.
We all know people pleasers. May even have some people pleasers on the call. I mean, they're listening. Why is it that doesn't really help or serve anybody?
Such a good question. So, people pleasing is a really interesting one, because if you dive deep enough into it and you really look at it, we think we're doing what the other person wants or needs from us so that we can make them happy, right? And be a good friend, be a good daughter, be a good sibling, whatever. But when you dive deep enough and you realize that, if you have to abandon yourself and do something to, quote unquote, make someone else happy, then you're not actually.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
I want to interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
Are we actually being a good friend or good daughter or good sibling, or are we appearing to be a good sibling?
Yes, appearing, because we're not showing up as our authentic version of ourselves. If we are, thinking before we look after ourselves, just going to what do they need? What do they need from me? And, you can get so depleted so fast when that's how you're operating. And a lot of it comes, again, like from a deep-rooted belief that I have to be a certain way in order for people to love and accept me. So a lot of people pleasers have the tendency to kind of shape-shift or become a chameleon based on who they're around or who they're with. But the reason that doesn't serve anyone is because, there's a few reasons, but, a lot of times we want to please someone because we don't want to sit with the discomfort of being true to ourselves and just letting the cards fall where they fall. It's easier for us to just do what we think is needed versus stand in our power and do what's best for us with kindness. Does that make sense?
We're not being true to ourselves, and a lot of times if you're doing that, it's superficial.
Yes.
And they know it's superficial. You're only doing it to get something from them. I mean, it's superficial all the way around most times.
Yeah, exactly. And, and I really believe that if we're being true to ourselves, if we're honoring ourselves, that is the best thing we can do for anyone in our life, because, I can't show up as the best version of myself if I'm constantly over-giving and trying to please everyone and just putting myself on the back burner. I can't be a loving friend, or I can't be, a supportive daughter or a good partner if I'm always, so worried about what other people think and meeting their needs before filling my own cup.
Well, and you're also letting that person take advantage of you.
Yeah.
Which isn't healthy for either one of you.
Exactly. And it's really an interesting thing because, I have a specific client, and this is his main area of growth, like just releasing the need to be a people pleaser. And he came to me one day and he said, "Oh my gosh, I had an epiphany. I realized that I'm doing this for myself." He said, "It's actually on some level a little selfish because I don't want to be uncomfortable. So I'm going to, make myself into a pretzel or a chameleon and be whatever they want me to be so that I don't have to be uncomfortable if, they're disappointed or whatever." So I was like, yes, that's such a good insight.
Don't you love when like you see him light up and you're like, yes!
Oh, my favorite. Yeah, and he's doing so well, just honoring himself. And something that really helped him and might help some other people is just knowing that, when you're true to yourself, the people who are aligned with that will come into your life and will honor you where you're at. And the people that aren't, the people that don't like it will fall away. And that's actually a good thing.
Right.
Because we don't want, you know, those kind of connections that, like you said, that would be conditional based on like, well, you're just always giving or you're always, you know, being whoever they want you to be at the expense of your own self-care.
Right. You know, it's amazing when people that are taking advantage of you disappear from your life. You don't miss them.
No,
you may think you're going to, but you just don't miss them.
No.
I can tell you this from experience. I got a long list of them, and it just, no. And you have all this free time for other people, because it's interesting, and I've tried to explain this to people. If somebody is taking up a space in your life and they're using you or treating you bad or whatever, they're taking up a space that a good person could be in. So,
yes, Nikki. Oh, my gosh. You're speaking my language right now.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. We have to create space. And sometimes that comes in the form of a breakup. Like, that's been one of the hardest things for me in my life is like, oh, my gosh, something has to leave so that something more aligned can come in. Because in relationships, sometimes, you know, we're at a certain level of alignment for a little bit, and then, you know, you go in a different direction, and it can be really painful. But, you know, you have to create space. And I even did something kind of funny, but I feel like it worked. When I wanted to call in my partner, I actually created physical space in my home too. So I emptied out a couple of drawers. I emptied out the nightstand on the other side of the bed, and I just created space, you know, space for someone to enter. And I don't know, now it's all filled up with, now it has all his stuff in it. So I'm like, well, that's kind of cool.
See, literally creating space. Very good.
Yeah. And I think it's, you know, it's just the intention behind it, but actually having like open space, you know, in our hearts, in our minds, in our homes, and sometimes there's a bit of a gap between, you know, something leaving and then something new coming in. So I'm always trying to clean out, you know, my closets and things and letting that stuff go so that more aligned things can come in.
That's it. Now tell you what. Now I'm gonna shift us just a little bit to like one of my favorite topics, and that's filling ourselves up with love first. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
I think that's so important, and I think we aren't taught that. So
no, we definitely aren't. Well, now let me tweak that just a little bit. I think some of us are taught in a very unhealthy way to fill ourselves up with love first in a very unhealthy, selfish way, which is not good. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about loving and accepting and loving ourselves in a healthy, nurturing way so that we're more prepared for a healthy, loving relationship with another person also.
Exactly. Yes, it really is the key. And I feel like it can sound like a bit of a cliche, like you need to love yourself, you need to fill yourself up, but it's just the truth. And you know, when I was first learning this, I would ask people, how do you do that? How do you love yourself? And someone said to me, and it was so helpful because I thought it was kind of like a mountaintop, like you climb up to the mountain of loving yourself and then you stand up on the mountain and you've achieved it, right? And it's like, well, actually, she explained it to me, you know, each day you just choose, you know, loving things. That how can you be supportive to yourself today? What do you need today to feel peace or to feel joy? And how can you give that to yourself? And that really helped me because I thought, oh, okay, so it's like a day-to-day thing. It's not like this elusive, oh, this is how you love yourself program. You know, it's like it's a daily practice. True.
Well, the thing is, if you're not currently doing it, it can be a program where you kind of learn how to do it, and then once you figure it out and you get to that point with yourself, then you want to keep it up on a small way, small daily kind of thing, kind of like you do when you're dating somebody and then you get into a relationship or a committed relationship and then married and then you continue it daily after that.
Right. Yeah. I think I misspoke. What I meant is like there's no you don't get to this point where you're like, okay, now I love myself, and it's it's like working on your relationship with yourself every day. And yes, you can absolutely learn strategies and tips and tricks on how to love yourself and fill yourself up first, for sure.
It's not the kind of thing that you just kind of graduate from and then you're done.
That's exactly what I was trying to say. Yes.
Got it. Okay. Completely agree.
Yeah.
That was like I had a guest about a month or two ago, and he thought that instead of getting married at the beginning of a relationship, that should be like the culmination, and that's the prize that you get for years of like successfully being together. And I said, well, that's an interesting philosophy. So
that is interesting.
I never know what my guests are going to come up with next. I just never know.
I bet.
But I had never had somebody suggest that the wedding should come at the end of the relationship. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Well, I used to work with elderly people in a former life as an occupational therapist. And this couple that I worked with, they were in their 90s. So I think she was 95, he was 98. And I asked them, what is the secret? Because anytime I met a cute couple, I would always ask them, what's the secret? And they said, we've had every possible fight you could ever have, and now we're done.
I would think at 95 and 98, you have easily had a whole lot of fights. So.
Oh yeah. They're good. They've figured it all out. They're like, this is, we've done it all. We've thought about it all and worked it all out, and here we are.
I would think at that point you should have, you should definitely have it. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's too cute. Yep, we're done. Figured it out. That's like the joke where the man always calls his wife babe and honey, and they say, why do you do that? He said, forgot her name 30 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. And this couple too is really funny because they met, I think, when they were teenagers. So they've been together that long.
Oh, and wow.
He had a tattoo on his arm with a heart with her name in it. And then she had a tattoo of just a heart and no name in it. So I asked her, where's his name? And she said, well, I wasn't sure if I was going to stay with him. So
So after 80 years, she still hadn't decided
yet? She left it open. Yeah, she left her heart open, just in case.
That's funny. At some point, at some anniversary, she could have had it done,
Yeah, she might. You never know. She's 95 now, maybe 96.
Yeah, maybe. Wow. He should spring for that for 96.
I agree.
I can see it now. Wow, that's too funny.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Sounds like it. She reminds me of my grandma, actually. She was so funny. She was going out on a date with somebody in her late 80s. She might have been 90 by then, and she got tired. She lived in this very, very, very small town, and she got tired of all the women gossiping. Right, as she went out with a new person. So she told this man that asked her. He kept asking her out, and she finally says, okay, all right. She says, but we have to go out in another town, and another town is like 15 miles away. Right? and she says, I don't want those old women gossiping about us. So
that's amazing. I love it.
Yeah. Well, you know how those seniors talk at senior center. So. All right, so how about taking 100% responsibility for how we show up, not blaming other people for things that we do wrong? I love people being accountable for their own actions.
Yeah.
And that seems to be something people don't like to do a whole lot.
Yeah.
It's not as popular now as it has been other times in life.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not popular. But it's so important, and it goes back to, we see the world through our own filter, right? So, every single person has had different experiences and different things in their life, and so the way that I interpret something could be different from the way you interpret something based on our past, right? And so when we know that, we can take responsibility if we're having, a challenge in a relationship and we're interpreting something in a certain way and, the person that we're engaging with is not, right? And so that's where we come into, I think you asked before about triggers. Someone could, say or do something that actually reminds us of something in our past that has very little to do with the person in front of us, if anything. So, my partner, sometimes he wants to listen, so he'll just listen so intently that he doesn't respond verbally. And that actually reminds me of my mom when she used to kind of just dismiss me and not respond to me. So it's a trigger for me. So in that moment when I get triggered, I need to take 100% responsibility that, this is my stuff. And it doesn't really have much to do with him, if anything. So I think we're each responsible for how we show up. But like you said, it's not a popular opinion. And there is a difference between responsibility and blame. So being responsible doesn't mean blaming, but just owning your own patterns and the way that they show up in relationships and sharing it with whoever you're dealing with, if it's safe, can be a total game changer, because otherwise, you're projecting your stuff onto them. They're projecting their stuff onto you, and it can become a big, huge loop that really has not much to do with the current circumstance. So, that's kind of where I stand with taking responsibility, but I feel like it really frees us, because otherwise we think we're the victim, they're doing this to me and how dare they and blah, 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 instead of thinking, well, what is this situation showing me about me? What is this bringing up for me that is helpful for me to know about myself? So for me, it's when he doesn't respond, I go back to when I was a little kid and my mom wouldn't respond. And so it makes me panic in my body. So it's good to know these things versus I could just stay in the loop of, well, if he would just respond, then everything would be fine, But, but the gem of it is linking it back to, well, what is this bringing up for me? Because then we can know ourselves on a deeper level and really master ourselves, have a level of self-mastery.
Well, and I think even I've got this theory, and we'll see if you agree, that every relationship we've ever had, the good, the bad, the ugly, the whatever, and no matter how long it's lasted, we've learned something about ourselves and about what we do and what we don't want in relationships. What do you think?
100%.
It just, and I think even some of the most valuable things are what we don't want in relationships, because...
Yes, totally.
It's...
Because when you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. Yeah.
Well, and people are like, oh, I just, that was a horrible relationship. I don't even want to think about it. It's no, you really should, because it's so valuable to realize what you don't want in a relationship, because then when you find a good person, you value those things that you do want.
Yeah.
And like you said, you may not have known the things that you want and need in a relationship until you know what you don't want. And it's I don't want that, but I need that.
Right. It helps us refine, for sure.
Yeah. And like I said, it's it's so much easier to know what you want in a relationship than to figure out the things that you actually need in a relationship.
Yeah, that's true.
And the needs are more important. They just are.
Yeah.
Especially for a long-term relationship. That's actually kind of cool. I like that. I just thought about
so
that.
True. Yeah.
But it just, I was talking to a friend of mine, and I actually met her because she was dating a friend of mine, actually my brother's best friend, and it did not end up well, and she complains about him. I said, okay, well, number one, we wouldn't have met if you hadn't dated him. She's okay. I have to give him credit for that, And I said, but okay, but here's the thing. I said, I saw some of the other guys you dated. She's okay, yeah, okay. We were talking about, at one point she was dating a whole bunch of guys, and don't remember any of their names, but we remember every car they drove because she called them by their car names. So we were joking about that the other day when I went in to have my hair done, and so BMW, Porsche, they all had really sweet cars actually.
That's so
but
funny.
she's very, very good, very, very cute. But I told her, I said, okay, now no matter what we want to say, because he did have some good qualities. He had some real problems, but he has some good qualities. But I said, now consider who you're with now and how happy you are and your wonderful little boy. I said, now if you hadn't dated him and you hadn't learned so much about yourself through dating him, would you have found the person you're with now? Would you have set your boundaries as good as you did with him? Mm-hmm. And would you appreciate him as much as you do? And she just gave me that look, and she's like, probably not.
It's so true. It's so true. You have to trust the process.
Yeah. It's all because when you do that and you actually look at it, and of course when one of your good friends is a coach, that helps too. But and it was so funny, right before she got married, we went out to dinner and we were having a coaching session over dinner, and you should have the waitress was trying to listen in. I'm like, okay, we'll call you when we need you. It's amazing the people want to listen in on coaching sessions. It's when you take the time and you actually analyze things, and try to learn from your experiences, it is amazing the things you can learn about yourself. It really is. But,
and we might as well, if we have to go through something that's painful, we might as well, milk it for all it's worth.
Yeah,
and learn what we need to learn. Yeah, yep. And get really clear on, okay, my most toxic relationship, that makes me appreciate all the qualities, just like you said, that I have now in my partner. I'm just so grateful. And I might not have appreciated that if I didn't go through such a horrendous relationship, that didn't have any of those qualities.
I mean, all the information you need is there. You just have to get it.
Yeah.
You talk about creating a toolkit for your own peace. Mm-hmm. That sounds really, really cool. Tell us about that.
For myself, at the end of that relationship that I was just mentioning, I was on my knees in the most pain I've ever been in, just I'm going to die kind of situation. I felt so broken. And from there, I started learning how to finally go within myself and kind of give myself what I needed versus looking for that in other people. And so, I created a little bit of a toolkit of things that help me. So it's different for everybody, but, meditation helped me so much, just sitting with myself and just knowing that I'm safe and I'm okay, exactly as I am, with or without a partner, was super, super helpful. Prayer was really helpful for me as well. And, having support. So I had a therapist that I saw once a week. Getting out in nature is really helpful. So, petting my cat is really helpful. So just getting a list together of things that bring you peace. And it doesn't necessarily have to be happiness, because sometimes I think, it can seem like a really far off goal to try to become happy when you're in such a devastated state. But just like, what could I give myself today to experience a little bit of peace, you know?
Right.
And so that really helped me. And now I can always go back to that if I'm ever having a hard day. Or, you know, I love Louise Hay. She's one of my favorite spiritual teachers, authors. Her books, if I'm having a bad day, I go to her books, and they're just it's like so nurturing for myself. So I think, you know, all of us can learn what works for us and what gives us that feeling of peace within ourselves, and just give those things to ourselves, whatever they are.
Right. Well, I like that point about, you know, sometimes happiness is not possible at certain stages, but just sometimes just peace of mind. You know, just saying, you know, I'm going to be okay. I'm just not there yet.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or I'm working to it. I'm just, you know, I'm getting there. I'm getting there, but
yeah, and letting yourself be where you're at is so important, because you can't force your own, you can't rush your healing. You can't make it go faster than it's going to go. So it's like, you know, just sitting with the knowing that, okay, so this is one of those times where I feel like this, and that's okay. We're human. Because I feel like our society really almost makes it wrong to have a bad day, or to feel depressed, or to feel anxious. And it's like, you know, some of us, that's kind of a part of who we are, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's okay.
Well, the thing is, you need to feel and experience the emotions, all of them. Well, the thing is, though, sometimes people feel the need to over-dramatize it. Okay, you don't need to do that. You know, feel it and experience it, and then go on. You know, don't make it the end of the world if it's not.
And they're doing the best they can. Like, that's the thing, because, you know, we have to just honor people where they're at, and just, you know, you can choose, do I want this person in my life? But sometimes people are just where they're at, and there's not much we can do. It's a hard one, but.
How can people get clear on what they want to create in the relationship? And this could actually be a whole thing. I'm going to have you back anyway.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, a little teaser. What's the difference between what you want and what you need in a relationship? Let's do that, and then we'll delve into the other next time. Okay.
So, I mean, I think it's different for everyone, but I'll use an example from my own life.
Okay.
What I wanted was, you know, fireworks and like just like chemistry that's like off the charts and all of that, right? That's what I wanted. Every time I had that, it was not the healthiest, you know, and that's an understatement. What I need and what I have now is, you know, I'm attracted to my partner, but it's a healthier dynamic where, you know, he's consistent and he's nurturing and he shows up and he values me. So those are things that I need in order to stay in my peace. So when I started asking myself, what do I need? How do I feel? I think that's a good question. Asking yourself, how do I feel in the presence of this person that I'm with? Do I feel calm? Do I feel anxious? Do I feel nervous? And, you know, with him, I always felt calm. And with the people that I felt really the chemistry off the charts, I was nervous a lot of the time. So I think our bodies sort of tell us what is serving us and what maybe isn't.
It's a good example. I like that.
Yeah.
So next time we'll talk about how you can figure out the difference and how you can figure out what you want and what you need. Because like I said, they're not usually the same thing, and figuring out what you want is easier than figuring out what you need.
Yeah, I would agree, for sure. Well, I'd love to come back and talk about that.
I also want to talk about society and how they really mess with people as far as dating and relationships. because I think society does us no favors, and Hollywood not helping at all either. None.
No, definitely not.
Turn off Netflix if you want to figure out how to have a relationship. Turn it off.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's so true. Like from the time we were little kids, you know, the movies that we watched where a knight in shining armor comes to take the princess away and saves her. Like none of that is healthy. And you know, and the romantic comedies where, you know, the theme a lot of the times is like, you know, the person's unavailable, and then you strive, and then they change and they become available for the relationship.
Well,
it's like,
and have you noticed in all the Hallmark movies, the woman gives up her life and goes to be with the man?
All
but one.
Yeah.
All but one. I've only seen one of those where the man leaves his life to go with her. I said, finally, there's one out of, what, 500?
Yeah, I think it's starting to shift. Because I have a 7-year-old niece, and some of the movies now are more, they're not so strong in that theme, but it really does mess with us because it gets programmed into our minds, and then we think that that's how it's supposed to be. And if our life doesn't look like that, which most people don't, we think, you know, well, what, you know, if I'm not, you know, married, or if I don't have a partner, if I don't have a child by, you know, X, Y, and Z age, then something's wrong with me. And it's BS. So,
well, and the family does. And the family is like, why aren't you married? Why blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, and like my mother's friends were like, why aren't you married? I'm like, why is it your business?
Right. It's interesting. And people think, you know, if you're in a relationship, like I've noticed that if you're in a relationship, like good for you. So people will say, oh, I've been married 50 years. Oh, good for you. But how do you know that it's a healthy marriage or a fulfilling relationship? Like just because you've been together that long, I mean, you don't know the ins and outs. And let me tell you, you know, after working with a lot of people, you never know what's going on with people. And sometimes it's far better to be single. Like for me, it was far better to be single than to stay in that very toxic relationship that was just, you know, proving all those subconscious beliefs right for me.
Yeah, it's just unreal. I had a woman come up to me at my mom's funeral and complain to me for not being married and having grandchildren. And I'm like, this is not the day, and you need to get out of my face. Wow. And a friend of mine walked up behind me and looked at her, and he says, if I ever run into you again, woman, and she started to say something again, and it's like, no, don't. Wow, couldn't believe.
Yeah, and it's their stuff. Like it's her stuff. Whatever's in your aspect, it's like not about you, and it's not about us. When people project. Yeah, she's projecting her stuff, but it can be hard especially in a very sensitive moment like that.
Yeah, I have never seen her again, and don't plan to. I'm like, wow, unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know what? I had this conversation with my mom. My mom was fine. I was fine. You need to butt out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's so interesting, and people, you know, and it can hit a trigger for us, and especially in a moment where you're already upset, you're already, you know, you just lost your mom, and then someone comes to you and says that, it's like, are you kidding me?
Oh, something almost got hit, and it wasn't a trigger, trust me.
Yeah, people. One of my friends says people can be people-y. People are people-y sometimes.
It's not exactly the way I would have put it with her, but yeah. All right, I tell you what. How can people find more information about you?
Well, you can go to my website. It's jesshendrick.com, and I would love to connect with you if you have questions. If you'd like to book a call with me, there's an option to book a free call and just chat about anything that you'd like to work on around relationships, even your relationship with yourself. So that you can find me there. And then I'm also on Instagram at JessHendrick111, and then on Facebook under Jess Hendrick.
Very glad that you were here today. And
thank you.
I'll have the show and her information and a replay of today's show on my website at readyforloveradio.com/conscious relationship. Listeners, I'll be with you next time on Ready for Love Radio.